Hold on tight to your seats because what is currently unfolding inside the highest offices of global soccer is nothing short of a massive earthquake. The party is officially over. Their massive house of cards has completely collapsed, exposing what had already felt like the worst-kept secret in the entire history of global soccer for quite some time. Today, I am here to prove it with hard evidence that will blow your mind. That same untouchable governing body that seemed to keep the Argentine national team wrapped safely in bubble wrap, shielded against absolutely everyone and everything, has just cut them loose in the worst possible way. But do not believe for a second they did this out of pure goodwill. Not a chance. They only did it because their backs are against the wall, practically drowning in scandal. Gianni Infantino, easily the most powerful man in global sports, is living his darkest hours under total panic. Now UEFA, under the leadership of Alexander Ceferin, has not only declared an all-out war, but is actively demanding, listen closely to this, demanding his immediate resignation. So what was the final straw that broke the camel's back? What kind of dark, unspeakable secret came to light to make the entire European continent rise up in arms against the supreme leader of FIFA? If you honestly believed that the whole Argentina scandal was already massive, just wait until you hear what they were plotting behind closed doors with the revenue from all the World Cups. Do not go anywhere, because if you blink for even a second, you will miss the live collapse of the single largest empire in modern soccer history. Everything suggested FIFA would just let things blow over, especially since Gianni Infantino never wanted to punish Argentina. We all saw this clearly. He hoped the complaints would magically fade away. He wanted any serious investigation to quiet down and disappear entirely before it became a real threat, but he made a catastrophic mistake. Listen closely. Do you remember that incredibly famous leaked letter that the Argentine Football Association, in either their absolute innocence or total, shameless boldness, posted directly on their own official website? Honestly, that letter is pure gold to understand this entire scandal. Investigative journalists from all corners of the globe analyzed the text and uncovered an incredibly disturbing pattern. Infantino sent a highly supportive message to Claudio Tapia, offering sincere congratulations. He heaped massive praise on his level of professionalism, ending with a closing line that left everyone completely speechless, "With all my friendship." Yes, with all my friendship. Can you even imagine a Supreme Court judge sending friendly, supportive letters to the defendant just days before the actual trial begins? That is precisely what Infantino did, and it quickly spread like wildfire. That letter went completely viral. Major international outlets like Fox News, the BBC, Sports Illustrated, and the Daily Mail immediately exposed the glaring contradiction. How on earth can you act as an unbiased judge in a disciplinary case against Argentina, especially when you publicly praise their professionalism in just days earlier? Let us be completely honest. You cannot cover up the truth forever. Fans are not stupid, and the outrage over biased refereeing had already reached a boiling point. I am not about to sit here and claim there is a dark conspiracy cooked up in some secret basement, but honestly, there is absolutely zero consistency on field. They change the rules. They alter the rules for tackles, depending entirely on which massive superstar is on the pitch. If a major favorite is playing, the referees suddenly become suspiciously lenient. Remember the Egypt match? If that perfectly legal goal they disallowed for Egypt had actually counted, they would have gone up 3-0, and the game would have ended right there. 3-0, with all respect, there is absolutely no coming back from that. They were getting absolutely torn to shreds, but then, magically, the referee disallows the goal for a minor incident from way earlier. The score goes back to 1-0, and history is rewritten. Across the globe, over 23 million fans signed a petition demanding real fairness. 23 million people cannot possibly be wrong at the exact same time. You simply cannot ignore a massive wave of angry supporters shouting that enough is enough. Suddenly, the president of FIFA found himself backed into an inescapable corner. The sheer weight of public pressure absolutely crushed him. Soon, formal ethics complaints began piling up on his expensive desk. The advocacy group Fair Square sent an 8-page document detailing this lack of impartiality. Then, the Norwegian Football Association boldly stepped into the ring, announcing a formal complaint of their own without fearing any retaliation. Even powerhouses in Switzerland and England raised their voices, and then, almost like magic, things changed. FIFA had absolutely no choice left but to officially announce formal charges. Key players like Paredes, Molina, Almada, and Ayala found themselves under intense scrutiny, facing suspensions of at least 3 matches. At the exact same time, the Argentine Football Association itself was placed under investigation for 6 completely different categories of alleged violations. But watch out right here, because this is what should really get you furious. Absolutely, all of these charges were based entirely on videos that were already viral online, footage of brawls that you, me, and millions of others had just already seen 1,000 times. FIFA did not do a deep investigation or uncover anything new. They only acted because the massive media scandal was already burning their own hands. They moved to save Gianni Infantino's own skin, not because they suddenly had some profound desire for actual sporting justice. And while all of this cheap circus was surrounding Argentina, what was happening with the real owners of that glory? Let's talk about Spain, for the love of God. Spain proudly lifted the World Cup trophy, defeating Argentina in the grand final with a masterclass of total football that will be written in golden letters in the history books. It was an absolute brutal tactical beating on the pitch. That was 20 shots for Spain against barely 2 for Argentina, completely dominating with 65% possession. Emiliano Martinez had to make 11 miraculous saves because the relentless Spaniards had them completely suffocated against the ropes. And how exactly did FIFA react to this legendary generation-defining squad? They greeted the true champions with a cold, generic, and purely obligatory message. A simple congratulations, and that was it. But for Argentina, who had been dragging heavy controversies behind them, there was an incredibly long, detailed letter full of warm institutional affection. Where was the respect for manager Luis de la Fuente and his boys, who poured their entire hearts and souls out on that pitch? Players like Rodri, who maintained the posture of a true gentleman, after the final whistle in a game that was absolutely red-hot, or even Gabi himself, who also ended up accidentally dragged into the mud of this unfair disciplinary process. Spain deserved all the spotlights on the planet, but FIFA was far too busy trying to put out the fire for their favorites and polishing the tarnished image of their leader. But if you think this blatant cynicism is the only thing keeping Gianni Infantino on the brink of losing his job, hold on tight because this is barely the tip of a massive iceberg. What would you think if I told you that, while we were distracted debating cards and suspensions, Infantino was actually on the verge of selling the entire soul of world soccer to private investors in a dark room, quite literally? This is exactly where UEFA steps in and rolls out the heaviest artillery they have ever seen over in Switzerland. Alexander Ceferin, the president of UEFA, slammed his fist on the table and declared that this was where the line would be drawn. It turns out that FIFA had a disgustingly lucrative and secret project called FIFA Enterprise, the infamous FFE proposal. And what exactly was the catch of this brilliant plan? Well, it was nothing less than selling off 20% of all FIFA operations and every single tournament, including the sacred men's and women's World Cups, to a group of private hands. They wanted to privatize soccer right behind your back. And guess who was leading this massive group of investors ready to pump millions into our beloved sport? A company founded by Joshua Kushner. Yes, in case that last name sounds familiar, he is the brother of Harushner, Donald Trump's son-in-law. They wanted to bring in private and political funds to seize a massive piece of the tournaments that belonged to the fans, and they wanted to do it in total silence, right, extremely fast before anyone could notice. But they ran straight into a wall of reinforced concrete, UEFA, backed by the Asian Football Confederation, CONCACAF, and an army of smaller leagues. They went straight for Infantino's jugular and forced to completely shut down this absolute nonsense. UEFA held absolutely nothing back, releasing a statement that felt like a lethal slap in the face, saying loud and clear, "We cannot continue like this." With secret plans drawn up in a rush by anonymous individuals flying around in search of highly questionable benefits. They called him corrupt in front of the entire world without using the word. They demanded to identify those responsible for this aberration and make them pay the consequences. This was a titanic victory for clean soccer, but for Ceferin, this is only the beginning of the end. The commercial project was finally cancelled. Yes, but trust in Infantino is now 3 meters underground. Now, my brothers, the hunt is officially on. Top-tier sources like journalist Ben Jacobs confirm that Sheffield is pulling every single string to get European nations to immediately withdraw the letters of support they had already signed for Infantino. Because, believe it or not, this man already had more than 200 pre-approved endorsements to secure his fourth term in 2027, and over 40 of those votes were coming directly from Europe. But the Great Rebellion has erupted. The Football Association of England, the very same FA, he is leading the mob, screaming from the rooftops for Gianni Infantino to resign immediately, demanding a total, ruthless, and painful overhaul of the entire FIFA leadership structure from top to bottom. And the panic is so incredibly real that they are already talking about calling an emergency meeting of the powerful FIFA Council, a total closed-door ambush where they will corner him and tell him straight to his face to resign or forget about his presidential seat forever. UEFA has 55 votes, needing 106 to dethrone him completely. And as other confederations wake up to how their tournaments were being secretly auctioned off behind their backs, the math is starting to shift dramatically against Gianni Infantino. All this chaos shows just how terrible the current leadership is. They used all the massive hype of the 2030 World Cup, which will be hosted by Uruguay, Argentina, and Paraguay, as the perfect smokescreen to try and sneak in their incredibly dirty business deals. They thought we as fans only existed to buy jerseys and cheer for goals, thinking we would never see through these white-collar mafias running the game. But the world has woken up. Formal complaints are moving forward, an institutional coup is officially underway, and sports justice is finally being heavily questioned right down to its very core. They literally stole Spain's moment of absolute glory just to cover up the highly embarrassing operational failures of a broken system that can no longer support itself. The collapse of the empire built by Gianni Infantino feels more real and painful than ever before. But in this business, the big fish always seem to find a way to survive. The brutal war to take back control of FIFA is only in its very opening rounds. The Europeans will go in with absolutely everything to round up the votes and kick him straight out of Switzerland. So here is the million-dollar question, and I really want you to think about it very carefully. Do you believe that Gianni Infantino will actually end up resigning, completely cornered by this entire dirty favoritism scandal? Or will he pull strings in the shadows again to get his way and win re-election in 2027? I want to read all of your responses right now down in the comments, because I know this massive controversy makes your blood boil just as much as mine. If you are passionate about uncovering the real truth that others want to hide from you, smash that like button right now. Share this video with all your fellow soccer fans and subscribe to the channel, turning on that notification bell so we can keep exposing the owners of the game together. Take care of yourselves and see you next time.